A match, Southeast Asia for a match. We have had some walkovers, unfortunately, coming through on Tea Time. Joined by Michael, Yumi, Cassidy, as we continue on with the Eflare 100k Invitational. Do Not Disturb La versus King of Losing Clutches has come through with Do Not Disturb La really being undisturbed, honestly. Their name really put them up for that one. X-Pro Esports, however, as, you know, credit to Zilv, our producer, as he pointed out, they are formerly pro, as in they don't want to be competing anymore, so they are the first to be eliminated from the event as well. Michael, we've got other matches, though, and hopefully they will actually happen.
Then why, if they were ex-pros and didn't want to compete, why were they here in the first place? $100,000 up for grabs in this tournament, and not even getting, you know, not even trying for it, not even taking a swing at it. I'm fine with, you know, the opening couple of days, us, you know, getting rid of those uncommitted to the cause at the very least, but still some worthy competitors that want a slice of the pie, and I'm kind of excited to get our first look in on Icarus versus Salogagard, because we didn't actually get to see them on that first day.
Yeah, so we didn't have to get the mouthful of Salogagard out every single time. We're gonna get that wrong in some entertaining ways. Let's find out how it goes. But Icarus, obviously the remaining Vietnamese team that we haven't managed to cover so far on the stream, they were actually forced to forfeit yesterday. They had some issues going on. Funnily enough, so did Salogagard. So we were having this internal discussion about, hey, what happens if both teams want to forfeit here? So fortunately, we didn't have to get to that point, Michael, because I do think that Counter-Strike wasn't ready for that answer, even with the Source 2 engine.
Yeah, and now we get to see which one of them actually deserves to stay alive in the tournament, because they kind of omitted their first life in what is a double elimination bracket, and now they have themselves in a position where, like, listen, this isn't an ideal prospect, but maybe they just needed the extra pressure on themselves, knowing that there can be no mistakes from here on out.
Absolutely, and listen, Salogagard is obviously the second Filipino representatives, the first being Easy Peasy, who did go forward earlier on yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see some of the talent outside of the very top. I know most of the players who are at the top, like I mentioned, right? We've got Dreamscape, who we saw earlier today. We've got Derek and Jay from there. Easy Peasy are the former Moon Esports guys. I think we might have another player in Dark Side, but to be honest, I would be lying if I remember exactly about that one. But, you know, this is sort of getting away from the very top of the Filipino esports side of things, and now we're going into a little bit something down below. So I'm interested to see what kind of performances these guys put up. As far as Icarus is concerned, they were tied with Easy Esports in the domestic tournament that they did play, the 500 Bros CS2 event that happened a little while ago, and, you know, third to fourth, not bad. Hyper 5 were still the ones to come out on top. So frankly speaking, we are going into this more than a little bit blind. Maybe you're not, Michael, but I am.
No, I'm kind of in the same boat. You know, there's a few names that have been, you know, competing at least within the Vietnamese scene. I think Emmy was a part of one of the teams that tried to represent for IESF in that tournament in Bali, or not in Bali, in Romania. Bali was the previous year. And then, you know, you've got players like Zan, who I think has played with Kenoith and Estelle on a team that they labeled WeMax at a certain point in ESEA Open Season 43. But kind of aside from that, you know, there's very little sort of tournament history to reflect on for any of these players about what they're going to bring to the table with these rosters that aren't the same as the ones that, you know, even the games that I listed or the tournaments I was just referring to.
Well, listen, it's going to be interesting to see what the veto looks like as well. I'm really hopeful for Mirage, right? Just it feels like one of the best maps in the pool for me to just get acquainted with a player, because, you know, I know what my roles are going to be, right? I know what a B short player is supposed to do. I know what a B anchor is supposed to do. In other maps, there can be more complexity, and ask and ye shall receive. Maybe not every time, but at least once.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've had a lot of Ancient thus far, so nice that we get a different stomping ground, and like you said, a nice little litmus test, I think it can prove to be for these teams, because, you know, if we're going to end up in a situation where either of these two end up making it through the lower bracket, and we end up in that situation where we've got best of threes at the end of the lower bracket and the upper bracket, or even the finals for that matter, you know, we want to understand more about how these guys are going to play stylistically, as well as how dependable certain elements of the team are going to be as well.
And look, this is also where as we sort of go forward into the next phase of the tournament as well. For these guys, it's a nice place to prove themselves, because obviously lower bracket means you are going to be out even if you lose over here. And for Icarus, for Sally Gogurds, a lot of what's going to come down to it is about trying to prove yourself even to the teams above you in your national scene, that hey, we had a pretty good performance over here against other people as well. There's always so much roster shuffling going on internal to sort of local national scenes. It's something we've forgotten to a large extent, because so much of Counter-Strike is now inundated with contracts and buyouts and everything. But down here in Southeast Asia, we don't have a lot of that yet. Hopefully we will eventually, but in the meanwhile, a lot of it is, hey, who can sort of be the best even if it's in a bad situation. And I'm looking forward to finding out the answer to that as well, because like I said, for Vietnam especially, we are missing out on what should be the best team in the region. A lot of those players are sort of out and about in the wilderness or have decided not to be in there. And for the Filipino side as well, with so much talent leaving to Valorant, it does feel like, the easy peasy / when they were Moon Esports guys and whatnot, haven't really had that much throughput of newer, younger talent either.
I do find it kind of interesting as well, when we look at the Southeast Asia scene and we think about each of the regions just in isolation. When we look at smaller scenes across the world, when we look at like South America before it was really a powerhouse, or really even an area where we considered there to be talented CS players from. There was a very aggressive style, for example. Europe, I always felt like, had more of a slower pace to it. Russia as well mainly popularized that kind of play style. But then we moved into Asia, where it was like way more aggressive. But it was actually, to me, it's actually interesting watching how the Indonesians play, how the Filipinos play, how the Vietnamese sort of internal meta develops, because from what I've seen, actually, the Filipino squads seem to actually do a good job of playing a slower style that's more execute focused, while the Vietnamese do like to go for a lot more of these aggro types of plays. But I think we noticed it in the Hyper 5 game, that there was a lot of aggressive maneuvers from them on T side, but when it came to CT aggressions, there was actually kind of nothing to be seen, weirdly enough. So those are small things that we might be able to notice as we get further into this, and this might even prove to be more evidence to what I'm saying, or may even prove that I have no idea what I'm waffling about.
No, Michael, I mean, listen, the other thing to also keep in mind is that where you're referring to regions, a lot of the reason why we allocate styles to those regions is because, Michael, okay, maybe we're exceptions in certain regards, but most people aren't watching outside of like the top 10 to top 15 of a region, right? Like, so when you're looking towards the meta, which, the meta is basically just commonly accepted practices to win at the highest level. It isn't as applicable when you sort of get out of that top 15 mark or so. So even within Europe, right, you will have so many different microcosms in scenes. Right? That's why national scenes and national teams always played very differently to each other. And I think Southeast Asia as well, when you actually look over to it, just to sort of carry on with what you're mentioning, if you look at these Indonesian teams, historically, they've actually been very structured. They've been very execute heavy, and they've had oppers who will sort of hold down an angle and not really let go of it. They're not going to be hyperactive rotators, those sort of super fancy repeakers, with the exception of when the Singaporean players, however, came in. You think of your Excurates, you think of your Impressions, you think of some of these, Splash Gauge, your Bulbasaurs. These guys are much more hyper aggressive. These guys are much more of that sort of Asian style of Counter-Strike. While at the same time, when you look over to the Filipinos would be much more sort of default heavy in that regards, right? So this is where I think you're right. There's a lot of interesting parallels to be drawn for smaller scenes in Europe as well. But for me personally, Michael, I don't know if you remember the Turkish scene back when Space Soldiers were playing. That's what always felt like a really good parallel to what we're seeing coming out of like the Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore cluster. But for, Vietnam and whatnot, they always felt like they had their own flavors.
It's just, we've got such a long history with Counter-Strike, and we're blessed to have that to a certain extent as well, because a lot of the modern meta does feel like teams have lost sort of things that make them stick out stylistically, aside from, small decisions where in-game leaders are maybe more dictating the flow of CT sides, or maybe they're at the front of the action, they're the entry fragger. Those are the small things that we've seen develop in the past couple of years. But it actually took a while before we saw that sort of intermingling of philosophies actually take form in the top scene. So I actually just to keep drawing that comparison, to keep drawing that parallel, to have more tournaments in Southeast Asia or in Asia in general, just means that those philosophies can intermingle at a faster pace, because the European scene had loads of tournaments constantly chugging through, and it took several, well, like 5-6 years before we started to see this sort of amalgamation of ideas and philosophies actually take place at the higher levels. So that's a way in which the Southeast Asia scene can develop further down the stretch. I'm hoping it doesn't take maybe as long as 5 or 6 years, but it's a way in which that they may not need as much of the sort of boot camping in Europe to experience what European Counter-Strike feels like. Because you're right, you know, when you play domestically, the things that work at the top level don't always apply downwards in the way that you're kind of hoping it would.
I mean, Mongols loses to Rare Atom or Tyloo or Lin Vision like every single time when it's not the major qualifiers, right? Like, there is a reason for that. They are seen as the #1 team from Asia in the past few years, but they lose in Asia all the time. So when you're comparing it to international competition, it's very different, Michael. And in fact, I'll be honest, I think people who sort of say European Counter-Strike, they're either forced to do that because, hey, they don't have time, or because, well, honestly, they might be a little bit lazy about that description. Even if you look at the top teams, you know, you compare a Heroic to a G2, these are drastically different styles of Counter-Strike being played. And, you know, even in these past 5-6 years, one of the things that has happened is that the baseline defaulting style, that's definitely become unanimous, right? That seems to have been optimized. But beyond that, how do you break out of it? Are you going to be trying to flash every corner when you're peeking it like a big clan? Are you going to be reliant on Nico maybe trying to get aggressive on your own and just, you know, on his own and finding a pick-off with the way G2 sort of works it, hoping that Modesty is going to cover something else off, right? So then you compare that to your Asia. These teams have been forced to find an identity, right? You know, Mongols, they lost Scar, they lost sort of that Nico effect, they lost sort of that one guy who can bring out a pickoff in the same way, and then you had to see so many roles being swapped around, and the identities become very, very defined for some of these top teams. But for Southeast Asia, which hasn't been as included, I do think that opportunities like this are going to be really interesting to see what kind of identity do they create to try and beat the Mongolians, to try and beat the Chinese teams.
It's just kind of curious, because for a while it felt like we were still defining what these different styles or different forms of fighting looked like even. So now if you're an aspiring player, there's several different reference points and several proofs of concept of these styles working. They may not apply to the modern meta, but they can be a way for you to establish a baseline of this is the way that me and my team want to play, and we're going to try and mirror that as much as possible. It could just be, you might have to go through the history books to make sure that you're brushing up on all the small tidbits and all those details that can really add up. So yeah, no, I think when we look at these scenes that don't have as much sort of as much of a structured tournament circuit or as many of the same opportunities, it can be very easy to just sort of say, oh well, we're not expecting too much from them. But there is going to be a style of play that looks to fit the shoe for these players, and then it's about individual skill level and how much they can adapt to the environment that they're thrown in, because not everybody is going to be well tournament versed, like the two teams that we're going to end up watching with Icarus and Salu Gagarin.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, to sort of build up on your point a little bit more, and, you know, obviously if you guys haven't figured out, we do have a small delay, but we're just sort of trying to fill you in with a bit more history, because obviously the Southeast Asian region is something we're both a little bit passionate about. But Michael, very recently in the ESEA Season 46 Open Finals, we had the Indonesian team that went to the ISF Asian Championships, and I believe went to Romania as well. We had them competing against Gyud Gaming, which was one of the, probably the third best Mongolian team at the time, maybe fourth, you know, sort of, that depends on opinion. Gyud was the type of team that we were casting in closed qualifiers, right? These are the teams that are making it through to be in contention to make it to big events. And the Army Geniuses folks, which is the Indonesian squad, they actually managed to almost take them out in a best of 5, right? All of these games were incredibly close. It was just that was a team that also disbanded immediately after that tournament, right? So it's not like this was the most, let's say, harmonious team coming into that one either, right? So there's definitely a lot of talent in the region which has their own style, which is good enough to beat who we think are the top dogs on like an off chance, on an off day. And that off chance becomes bigger and bigger the more opportunities and the more circuit that there does exist for them to actually come through and fight this through. And look, for these guys, that's what you have to focus on as well, right? Like for Saligo Girds, for Icarus, they're probably not going to win the event. We have to be honest about this. But at the same time, you will not get more than 5 to 6 opportunities like this a year. That's if you're competing in everything. That's if you're getting a little bit lucky, where you actually get to test yourself out versus one of the better teams in the region, and you don't want to lose here, right? If you're Icarus, if you're Sally Gogers, who is it justifiable to lose to? It's justifiable to lose to a Dreamscape, to an On-Gay Warriors, to an Easy Peasy, maybe even to like a Dark Side at worst. But you want to lose to one of these big ones, so at least you can see what your actual limits are. Lose here, and you're feeling like you've gotten nothing out of it.
It's as well a platform for teams and players to build connections with potentially to top pro level teams. I know for a fact when there were competitions in the UK, when we had a team that looked like it was playing a well-structured or a very specific style of Counter-Strike, they were able to book scrims with top-level teams very easily after the fact, because of the fact they had this one style that this team wanted to practice against and see if they could find counters to and the sort. And sure, maybe that limits your chances in the future if you ever play them in a tournament later or down the line, but that type of practice is also invaluable, because it's also one of the things that I know the Australian guys complain about. I know the top teams in Asia sometimes complain about, is that the style of practice they get is very limiting, because the teams don't sort of carve out their own identity, or they don't prove that they're maybe even treating the practices seriously, which is something that I know that the North American scene had to struggle with for quite some time as well. You know, people play differently under different circumstances, but if you can show you've got a level head and you play the game like you're supposed to, which sounds so silly to say, but if you play the game like you're going to be competing in a tournament while you're scrimming, like that is very valuable to other teams in the region as well.
Especially because, right, for a lot of these players, you don't see them competing in the ESEA leagues. You don't see them competing in sort of those international circuits that much. So now that we have sort of had them being drawn out by a tournament like this, this will be, again, one of your few chances to get into those practice groups, into those WeChat groups and everything that do exist in Asia. And I can tell you from personal experience, they want more teams to join those groups. All of these guys are begging for more opponents. They're saying, hey, we've got 5 teams on top. Let's find 3 more below. After that, it's fair game. Come on, come in. Michael, get it in there.
I've already beaten all of my opponents. Where? Give me more.
Let me feast, right? That's sort of it. And also, where you're talking about sort of hiding strats and everything, and that can be difficult to compete against them. If you're the Mongols, you know you're playing against Tyloo, you know you're playing against Lin Vision, you know you're playing against, you know, sort of the same teams for these finals almost every single time. You don't want to practice against them when there's a playoffs going on or something like it, right? So if, let's say, Icarus comes through, they look really impressive here, they come top 2, top 3 in this event, and Mongols wants to get like some sneaky practice in, that could be one of those things that comes up. And, you know, Michael, not just that, I'm glad you brought up the UK scene as a parallel. One of the things that happens for me, Michael, is sometimes people reach out to me, they're like, hey, can you maybe recommend a player? We can't find a 5th. And a lot of the time, I draw a blank because I don't actually know some of the players competing below like the tier 1.5 level. So things like this, there is a lot of discovery to be done within the region. There's a lot of really good players, right? Like we will see some of the best being brought out by them. So a good performance here means, hey, 8 months down the line, someone needs a 5th. Oh man, this other guy just canceled on me. We've got a major qualifier in 3 months. We got to get a team together. Screw it, just give me anyone, right? And you could be that just give me anyone person for, you know, an eruption, for an ATOX, for something like this. So yeah, it's definitely a very interesting prospect when you look over towards the dynamics of scenes which have sort of fewer big local regional events sort of coming into them.
Yeah, and I think I maybe touched upon this in the first day, but, you know, a Southeast Asia tournament, especially for the teams that are intermingling from different countries, actually improves your marketability as a player, because, you know, when we think about, oh, can we make these players work? More teams are going international these days than ever before.
Yeah.
And to have someone that is able to communicate effectively with other cultures, other regions, is an invaluable tool. And, you know, a lot of the communication is done in English. Southeast Asia, that is very much the same if you're going to have these mixed bag teams. And so, you know, if you're, for example, all the Tyloo guys, when they were at the top of the scene, I'm sure that there were some interested parties about, you know, maybe bringing one or two of those players out, or even trialing them for a period. But then you don't know how well they're going to communicate with each other. That shouldn't be a problem for many of the Southeast Asia teams, especially the ones that we see that have these inter-regions mixed, because their communication skills are kind of already on display.
And Michael, I mean, you're talking about maybe the European side of things. Even within Asia, we were seeing these Chinese teams pick up imports from Europe as well coming into it. We just had Rare Adam go and pick up Fuzi and Corey. Fuzi's not doing very well there in the games that we've covered together. He's all right, right? But he's not a spectacular player, and I'm sure he crossed a pretty penny. You think they wouldn't rather replace him with some whiz kid from Malaysia who could be the next Kaze, with someone from Singapore? And absolutely they would, because they're already speaking in English. They've already taken the hit. In fact, having someone who's more of a cultural fit as well is bigger and better. And again, this is more of a Singapore and Malaysia thing where it applies, Michael, and I'm sure you can speak, and of course Hong Kong. I'm sure, Michael, you can speak to this more than I can, but a lot of these guys do also have some sort of like rudimentary interaction with the Mandarin community, if I'm not wrong, and they do have some exposure to the Chinese language as well. So I'm sure communications between Chinese, let's say, Wings or Rare Adam and someone from Singapore is probably going to be a bit better than someone from Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, when I was living in those countries, it was actually kind of annoying to me as somebody that is terrible at languages to walk in and have someone that is natively Singaporean or Malaysian speak fluent English to me, and I know that they speak another one, maybe two languages on top of that as well. Because of that exposure that you're talking about is definitely a plus for regions where they have a lot of they sort of serve as business hubs for a lot of international companies and the sort. There's going to be a lot of English speakers. There's going to be a lot of Mandarin crossover as well. I know Indonesia has a certain exposure to that as well. But yeah, there is going to be places where that is definitely stronger than others.
Michael, there's going to be a lot of things, but there's not going to be a lot of players on the server. I have just received word we're starting 5 versus 4. I don't know who the 4 is. So you know what? Don't tell us, Zilf. We're going to figure it out as we go into it. Who could it be?
Into
the game.
I do have my suspicions. I did see that the chat was a little quiet in certain points during the admin checkups with the players. So yeah, maybe a little concerning. Definitely very largely concerning. Starting 5v4 in any game is unideal, but I mean, so long as we have players in the server.
We've been talking some about scouting and this and that and how you can get noticed. You know what really helps you get noticed, Michael? Winning a game 4 versus 5. Well, look at that too. But winning a game 4 versus 5, man, you can do that, dude. Tyler's on the phone, right? Yo, can we dump our current lineup? Can we just get you 4? Yeah, we don't need a 5th. We're fine. Yeah,
we're cheaper to run with 4 in theory.
It is true. 4 is less than 5, but only in the payroll, maybe not on the server. But on a serious note, does kind of suck, dude. Does kind of suck.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, if we're able to have a game, you can at least try and display as much as you can. But in a certain sense, when you are 4v5 all of the time, you kind of have to do stuff. You can't just be you can't sit on bomb sites all the time on CT sites. You have to do stuff, otherwise you will lose the game. So
I want that on a t-shirt. Do stuff or you will lose the game. Michael Yumi Cassidy.
Sometimes teams don't do anything, and they simply wait for your opponent to make a mistake.
Shout out Advent to literally every single RMR qualifier where he's playing up against the Mongols on Inferno.
What? Why are we throwing shade?
You said sometimes teams don't do anything and then they lose. Well, that's the team that I think of who doesn't do anything.
Wasn't it the Zeus does something?
Well, I mean, listen, we don't have to throw shade on one person.
Yeah, so many candidates for shade.
Indeed. And many candidates for the 5th player of Sally Gogurt. So you want to join them, maybe drop them an email right now.
Yeah, this was the team I had suspicions about. I won't pretend.
They were having some connection issues yesterday as well. I believe that's one of the reasons why they ended up forfeiting. Who are they missing is the question. Okay, they have Kimmy. They have Gemdog. They have Mikozu. They have Zan. They are missing Zums.
They are missing Zums.
Yes.
Bold of you to assume he would show up.
Well, this is going to be either a little bit of a sad affair or a very legendary one. Michael, have you seen Ted Lasso?
No, I have not.
You have not? That is a shame. I will not give you the analogy and the spoiler in that case.
Well, why would you do that to the viewer then?
Well, the viewers don't matter.
That's that's a little existential crisis for the viewer, I think. Oh,
Listen, if they haven't seen Ted Lasso yet, then they, they should do it immediately after this tournament.
Okay.
It's a great show. But that being said, now the question is, you did say, Michael, that they can't do nothing, but Sally Go-Karts is doing exactly that. They do spun out the first player back in CT, but it's just going to be Kunz who is just backing off and letting them shut away.
Yeah,
and the jump spot continues.
Gem just shot and ran away. They are bleeding out this round because it seems like Sanzu is... Oh, wait. Oh, that was Kimmy. It was Kimmy. I don't know. He was just knife out and spawn. So now that everybody's moving, now Sally Go-Karts will have to go. And the time is forcing them to do so as well.
Icarus at the same time have maintained defensive positions, and as the clock start to rain forward, Kunz just cannot line up a shot to save his life. And look, there's a lot of ground been gained and a dink been had. Is there more damage? Yes, but not quite the way you'd hope for it to go. Kimmy forced off, but it's Xander to finish off Kunz. Now it's trying to close out distance back in CT. Mikosu doesn't catch out the first bullet. It will be difficult as he's left all alone, and he's missing every single shot. Fuyu just goes for the quick turnaround, and he's saying, well, I am invulnerable. If you can't see my head, you can't shoot it, and that is true. Mikosu, however, can't shoot the heads he can see either. Not a good start for Sally Go-Karts.
Yeah, I mean, they at least got the bomb down in that situation, with such a static round and a whole lot of nothing being done for the majority of the timer. For them to have broken in, got the kills they needed to secure a plant is obviously a nice little benefit. This is kind of curious. I don't know if this applies because they started 4v5. There is a mechanic on matchmaking, for example, where if you're shorted one player for a reason, you're given extra cash.
Yeah, I just asked that in the chat literally right now.
And I don't think that would apply in tournament rules. That's to make sure that you don't get grief by teammates on matchmaking who suddenly have to clean the house.
Even in matchmaking, if you kick someone, you don't get the money.
Yeah, you made that choice.
Yeah.
But if you get rid of them verbally, then maybe you get the extra cash. Don't do that. Being toxic is a choice.
Well, it's a choice I will continue to make every single time I get matched up with some people, but hey.
What the? Okay. Don't queue with you. Noted.
Sometimes you just gotta do it, Michael.
Well, they go for the force buy because they got that plant down. They do have Galils, which will help empower them. This is a technical stronger buy here from Sally Go-Karts, and they're contacting out ramp via gem. This is rather interesting now because there's no real reason for them to suspect this is a possibility, but now spotted and now face checking middle as well. Shark not coupling that up with a flash or any sort of assistance from his teammates. Back to a 4-on-4, and suddenly Sally Go-Karts have a real fighting chance in the round.
Kunz just continues to jiggle forward, but Kimmy's there to shut him down. Good entries. They found it into a 4 versus 2. And suddenly Icarus is feeling a little bit silly about themselves, but long-range MP9 will be giving the double question mark. The curious man, absolutely nothing. Shins as well, only good for the 1.
Well,
I've just received confirmation, by the way, Michael, that the extra $1,000 is disabled.
yeah, as anticipated, but you just gotta make sure. I'm curious. Was it question marks at the start of the game? It must have been.
Well, listen. You're curious, he's curious, we're all curious.
He's the question
There are
now.
no answers. Yes. No, his name is question mark, even in Discord. Okay. Well. Uncertainty follows this man, but maybe they can find some certainty in a win. Maybe he changes his name afterwards. One question mark just goes down every time they win a map.
Now, the question is a great name. And a great hero. I think he's he's a DC hero.
Dude, who even knows where DC heroes at this point, Michael?
I don't know, my childhood.
Yeah, you lost that years ago, dude.
Yeah, and I can still hold on to it.
Sally Go-Girls are going to be hoping to hold on to a little bit of hope that their player returns. I feel like these timeouts are mostly to buy time more than anything else. But who knows? I think it is Sally Go-Girls calling time, but at least it did have a tiny little arrow on the right.
Yeah, that would be... That was a suspicion, is if they're using these timeouts and bleeding out these rounds in hopes that their fifth is coming.
Oh, you know what? He's going to a LAN cafe. That's what's going on.
That could, I mean, that wouldn't be the first time that I've heard about that.
Yeah, I've done that.
Okay.
Yep, they're chilling in spawn. That's exactly what's going on. Yo, boy, this is true. SEACS coming in here. Gemgi comes out with a quick frag. The questions have been answered, and they've been answered by having the head taken off. That's one way to solve curiosity. In fact, that's how the cat died.
If they end up, if they do win, or if they find themselves in a healthy lead on 4v5, this would be quite something. Still a lot to be answered in this against these pistols, but the player that snuck himself inside of the smoke is Fuyu, and waiting for the chance to strike at the moment. No one even looking at this, not even considering it. No spam until there is. Fuyu catches one straight to the head just before that smoke fades, and that felt like the only real ace up the sleeve of Icarus.
So the slightly strange name is Mikozu, right? Yep, it's Mikozu. All right. I don't know what the character is, so yeah. Oh. Okay, all right. So we have found out that certain leads are not to be taken. There was a small technical issue going on for the CT camp. They did ask for a reset of the round, and I believe it's been given to them. So, tough luck.
Yeah,
but they do at least buy some more time for their boy to go back to, or girl or person to go back to the gaming zone, which seems to be the case.
Yeah, no, I mean as well, you know, if they call the tech before the round is actually played out and then the round plays out, that's just how the cookie crumbles. You know, they call the tech early enough. And so, yeah, we should be revoking back to 1-1. I'm kind of, I mean, yeah, I'm just already harrowing the prospect of losing a 4 versus 5 if it is to occur. And hopefully this can, you know, give an opportunity for Sally Go-Girls to actually get a 5th man in, or 5th person, like you said.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, I'm going to go find out why this cookie keeps crumbling, what kind of cookie dough is it made of, what's going wrong with this, Michael. The baking process seems to be off, something like it. I'm curious, just like Mr. Questions, and we're going to go to a break while I fulfill and hopefully find out the answer to the magic cookie. Smokes down, A side occupied, bomb has been planted, and Icarus will fall. Sally Go-Gurts, as you guys can see, have got themselves a gasp fifth man. Shins is going to be falling down to that fifth man. Zum's already getting kills as well. Nice. Good job, Zums.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we've actually have a game on our hands now. You know, they were able to win the second round even without Zums, and that, I mean, against pistols, it's just a formality. You know, the pistols are only going to get so much damage done. But now we can really have a look at how Sally Go-Gurts kind of wanted to approach this game. You know, at the start, really weren't sure whether we were going to see a normal game of Counter-Strike at all, but things have returned to normalcy. We'll see whether Icarus can put up a fight in a future round. It's another round in which they will only have pistols.
She's all the way in already, trying to take the duel up versus the bench player. There are 3 players on this B side, and rotation swiftly coming in. Shins had a chance to isolate Zanzu, but instead, only one falling is little Mr. Kimmy.
Ooh.
Nice shot from Fuyu.
And, oh, an isolated player on the bomb site is labeled somebody on the HUD, but that ain't the somebody you're thinking of. Now the question, looking for some answers, but all he gets is a bullet to the brain. Pistol's not succeeding once again, but keeping the economy somewhat modest. Not a lot of success in the previous effort, but now Icarus do have a bit of a tall task ahead of them. Some built-up funds for the T side, and now an AWP for Fuyu. I find middle control is also a bit of a telling sign as to how much rehearsal or practice you've done. Throwing in a little bit of aggression on CT side can be a very good way of disrupting what is a very traditional default for a lot of teams on T sides. But look at the pace. Once again, just getting so much room via Gem. And he's just going to barrel through connector and straight into Fuyu as well in window, just taking over jungle. This is so disruptive. Icarus are in a really tight bind here, but fighting tooth and nail on the bomb sites itself. It's just about this flank, because that's the real ace in the hole.
Well, that ace in the hole has revealed itself a little bit sloppy on the spray, but he'll still find the frags, and now re-navigating back to the B bomb site will be the CTs most likely. Kimmy recovered the bomb earlier on. Shark had dropped that, but Kimmy's adjustment is solid. He's able to get the frag, and Shark will maybe have the opportunity to cut off the rotate from Jemga and make this a one-on-one, but beyond that, actually winning the round seems a little bit tough if that doesn't happen.
Well, Shark will try his hand in the 1v2, but yeah, the fact that they're so heavily separated does make things rather difficult. Gem has been around the map and back. He started in con and he finishes in con, going all the way through traditional CT rotate. I don't know what he's done. You know, very rarely would we see a flight path like this succeed as well as it did, but he kept catching players off guard, and that just remained to be the case even in the late round.
It does definitely feel like the CTs need to maybe start being less aggressive. Funnily not, just playing a little bit more default, seeing if you can find a pickoff on Gem, because he's going for these aggressive pushes like it. And look, you're trying to do it with a deagle, sure, but right now the problem is it is just a deagle. Fuyu going to go down to the grenade. Zanzu can finish off what Kimmy started, and then there's just more and more kills coming through. Shins another chance to miss up. Didn't even need the headshot for that one. One to the groin would have been more than enough.
And just fighting behind the Molotov as well. The flames helping to obscure Kimmy on that fight. Once again, the pistols will struggle to get much impact. Is this the kind of player that we're already deciding that Gem is going to be? Just hyper-aggressive, take a spawn, and fly with it, because he's honestly dictating the flow of these rounds very heavily.
Oh. Good for Kunz.
And I don't think we're...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not just me. All right. Well, yeah, as you can see, Sharks is doing the moonwalk. We are very stylish people in the Asian community. We do love our dance. We do love a little bit of boogie down. And so far, the boogie down was more of a shakedown. Icarus being shooked I'm sorry, I just had a sort of shoehorn Shukut in there.
You wanted to say Shuketh, and so you said it. You couldn't hold yourself back. Yeah, I mean, from one technical issue to the next, but this one isn't player related at the very least. And that
isn't that worse?
I don't know if it is worse or better. I have, I treat everything the same. I see problem and it is labeled a problem. But that round was basically a foregone conclusion. They weren't going for a retake.
Yes.
They were just going for damage, if anything. So.
We are restarting in 4-1 shortly, though, Michael. In the meanwhile, I was thinking of a really dumb hypothetical that I was going to ask you off air, but now that we've got like a break, I can just ask you now. See, Michael, if a deagle hits you in the leg, right, it does more damage, and you are dead, right? Like if you're low HP, you're dead, right? So I was just thinking, in real life, if I was to be shot by a deagle in my leg, and let's say, and in the exact same place, I'm also shot by a Glock, not at the same time. Obviously, these are two identical bodies of hair. Would I feel more pain if it's a deagle versus the Glock, just because it's a bigger caliber bullet, or would it just because like the adrenaline takes over anyway? Isn't it like the same amount of pain?
I feel as though the first instance of pain will hurt more, just because you won't have. No,
these are
adrenaline.
Two different bodies.
Oh, two different bodies.
They're identical, but they're two different bodies.
I mean,
both of them. It's the first shot.
The deagle will hurt you more because more of your flesh is being removed, I would say. Like, it's a higher caliber weapon. I don't know enough about guns to really have like a proper scientific argument for this, really, but I feel like more body removed, more hurt.
Yeah, technically yes, but I feel like shouldn't like the shock kick in and then you're just like, oh my god, my body's removed. I will not feel the pain, but I will feel some of it, but not all of it, right? I feel like that's sort of what we come down to. So yeah, just dumb things you think of when there's anti-ecos. But we are going to be going back into the game shortly, where we won't have to compare the Glock and Deagle pain, because we know how much damage they do. It's 43 with a Deagle when you're, reasonably close range.
There's a reason I play video games. I don't have to really think about this kind of a question, nor will I ever really have the answer, I don't think.
Hopefully, I hope you don't, Michael.
Yeah, no, I hope so too. For my future.
But if should God forbid you find out through someone else, obviously not through yourself.
I'll keep you in mind.
I'll
keep you in mind.
Everyone watching this right now, go follow Michael on Twitter. He is YOUM3TV. Make sure that you hold him accountable for that. 10, 20 years down the line, it's just gonna be a random tweet. Like Glock hurts the same.
It's all the same pain.
No. Will be a repeat, but a repeat of the round and a repeat of Jenga's antics as he's already up mid and in to be short. There are 3 players here, soon to be 4, and well, for Jemga that just means more kills to be had, and in the hunt for the eco frags, he will be hunted down instead.
Molotov is going to force Kunz out of his position and right into the clutches of what should have been a free kill. Instead, the nade will finish him off, and Fuyu not succeeding with his P250 at the back of the site, and it's only so long that he can dance between those angles before he's finally funneled out. This is good damage here in this round for Icarus, and it looked about on par as to what was happening before we ended up sort of resetting the round. So it's all good. We've come round about the same way. And Icarus, once again, in a bit of a struggling position. They came into this game thinking 5 versus 4. We'll just walk all over them. And now that there's 5, there's a strict realization that this is going to be a hard game.
Honestly, if Jemga wasn't just staying in spawn for the first 50 seconds, they probably would be able to do this. Otherwise, he's just sort of getting so much map control that the CTs are left bewildered. It feels like they don't really know what to do at that point.
Oh, this time a much slower approach to the round here from Salagogo. It's not maintaining that pace via gem we've seen in some of the rounds prior. Maybe expecting some counteractive moves here from Icarus to prevent that kind of an aggression succeeding. Now collapsing on towards this A bomb side of Molotov into Sandwich and one into CT as well. That will make things difficult for Shinos to hold on to, but he's actually cheated in front of that Molotov down towards Triple and has a player at stairs as well. They, at the moment, don't have a lot of space here on Salad Go-Guards.
Zanzu's almost found the kill in the backlines, but instead Shinos is able to take him down, trade it out very quickly. Mikozu involved for not just the one, make it two. There's still an AWP in CT, which might be unexpected, but with how much time has been made, rather taken since last contact, they should be at least keeping this as a consideration. No one exposing themselves to CT at all. Rotation pathways they know can only be CT. Jemka is covering off from jungle instead. Smoke out the palace, first contact made. Both players revealing themselves. Kunz and Shark are both going to be spotted out, and they're both taken down immediately. Fuyu, the only one able to get a frag, can't make it too. Mikozu from Palace continues to be just parading over their reign.
Yeah, I mean, a very difficult clutch for sure to win out, but also a chance to maybe escape with that AWP. Thing is, Sally Gogurts has such a wide spread of players in the post plant that holding onto that ult was also looking nigh on impossible. But Icarus are, you know, after all that aggression towards A, I'm almost surprised to see a player almost get shot in the back to start off that hit. Then the trades were rather quick, and if you're that connector player, you can't really trade back. You have to trade. You have to try and fight in your position. Sharks as well will fall as a result of trying too hard to hold on to connector, but they'll start this man down. Once again, some open territory for the Sally Gogurts to occupy. They've been rather cheeky with the way that they've been approaching these rounds, capitalizing on some of the blind spots of the defense.
Creating some blind spots too.
Yeah. Well, not sure what Gem is up to.
Well, questions that need answers. Zanzu will not be able to provide them. The quest for self-realization and understanding continues, but Mr. Question has only found 2 answers yet. I'm sticking down low.
I think the fact that Kimmy's found nothing on his lurking players over towards A might give them a bit of a misread here on Sally Gogurts. Leaving connector open for as long as they did, and no one face checking it on Icarus from Ticket or from Triple is very suspicious, but they are still collapsing towards what is a stacked B bomb site.
A lot of this will come down to the duel between Kimmy and Questions, right? If he can find the frag, then maybe there's still something to be done about it. Shinos, however, is the first one to take contact. Questions will be stabbed in the back, but helped out by Mikosu. Zums down on the side, quick for a frag, and now it's a 3-on-2. The bomb to be planted, nothing to contest it with. Fuyu already past the Molotov, but he reveals his position, shooting out. Shows that there is a player in deeper market side. Flashbang through, no peek with it. Fuyu still destroying positions, but it's Kunz to actually find the frag. They're not ready for the double market play. Kimmy, however, still pairing together. It's between him and Zums now to see who can actually take this one away. Nice adjustment from Kunz, and now as he swings out wide, he's not ready for Kimmy to have taken the left arch. Sally Gogurts taken out on a hairline.
Yeah, very commendable effort given that those players were low HP, being able to finish off those frags, but Kimmy standing ground on short, just first decapitating the first market player, but then also retaking the angle just to prevent a cross to the bomb site. Really solid work. But I like that they're almost going for these more burst-oriented executes. Sometimes just running off of spawn. This time, Gem will not succeed in his effort. In fact, since his earlier successes, has struggled to get a singular kill on the field, and that's a teammate join him in the afterlife. This is a cancel if I've ever seen one. Because it was still challenging, and a Molotov that does force Fuyu into the open. Duel's awkward, and Fuyu somehow comes out on top. Okay, not the way that I thought that was going to go at all. But nope. Icarus a 3-man advantage, and what should be, I would dare to label it, their second round.
Your daringness is rewarded, Michael. I believe. Yeah, should be. Kimmy might be able to do some damage at least. 2 kills here wouldn't be terrible. Let's not forget CT side has consistently been losing ops in the hand of Fuyu, so it would be nice to take this one away. A little bit of confusion with shocked, and Kimmy almost gets 3. In fact, that would have been quite devastating. Sally Gogurts have got lots of money to work with. At least 2 more buys in the tank here, so they could have reset the Icarus economy had Kimmy found 1 more frag, but it's not meant to be.
Yeah, just going for damage, and some good, honestly, some good mechanics are on display there from Kimmy, timing his peak and not swinging right into pre-fires. Nice sharp shooting, and almost a little display with that spray transfer like you're talking about. No AWP here for Icarus. I'm not interested in even attempting to slow things down. Are Sally Go-Gurds either a little delay perhaps on taking middle, but Zum's right straight into a Molotov. He was flashed up initially, so didn't realize he was cooking until his feet were suddenly singed.
I think he saw the Molotov going up, but maybe I'm wrong. Shark, however, right about the peaks that he wants to take. There's still more fights to be had in middle should he want to engage with them. Kimmy finds Shark swinging out, but in the meanwhile, Shinoz has found Mikozu. So with the remaining players all concentrated around middle, we will see Zums trying to retreat back and pick up the bomb while Kimmy picks up one. Fuyu unprepared for somebody having crept through, and the smoke dissipation will lead to his death. Now, Jemga. Oh, the timing! That is perfect. Kimmy taken down will mean Kunz at least still has a chance here, but there's still Jemga to deal with.
He's been such a nuisance, an annoyance. Constantly slipping into the defense and catching players off guard. Jem has really stood out, I think, thus far in these T-side proceedings. In the rounds that he's been hyper-aggressive, he has effectively won them single-handedly. And those 2 kills were extremely important. Makes it so this retake cannot happen here for Kunz. Sally Go-Gurds will get themselves to an 8th. They had already won the half, but now it's all about damage control here for Icarus if they want to salvage anything before moving into that T-side.
It does feel like Icarus is falling to some of the same fate as the other Vietnamese teams in certain rounds, where even if they get an advantage, they really struggle to close it out. We actually had this happen for Hyper 5. We had this happen for Easy Esports. Yes, Easy Esports as well. Yeah. Fuyu. Adjustment's almost there, but almost isn't quite enough. Zanzu is taking his time to start aggressing through. Mikozu could actually take a chance and go through the smoke with the smoke having been popped open. Decides against it. There were 2 players up above at the top of connector at that time, so good for him that he decides not to.
For quite a lot of risk-oriented plays on Sally Go-Gurds, but they've been heavily rewarded for them thus far this game, so why not go for it again? Not fresh smoke inside of window, but they already boosted up a player in Kimmy. Because he's going to wait out that smoke before proceeding, and the longer he waits, the quicker it is going to be picked up. Flash was not great, but both players flashed, and the SMG gets caught on the ladder. Doesn't make that fight very intuitive for the question.
Hey, don't blame the flashback. The flash was good. Jemga, where is he looking?
I mean, I was stating a fact. It caught both of them. Flash was not a fault, sure.
Shinoz, however, probably was. Fortunately for him, he can't pick up the frag, and with that, they've given up any map control they had on the side. Fuyu, nice shot. Is there a second to be found? No. Well, Kimmy's lost. Elsewhere, somebody's actually the one to push forward, rather Jemga. I will continue to call him somebody whenever I see that on the kill field. I'm too used to casting old Tyloo, but Jemga will finally fall. 1-on-2, and Sharks is going to look to commit. There is no concept of saving here, and well, maybe there should have been. Mikozu has picked up an AK to make up for his lost op shots, while Shark is shuffling out weapons as well. There's going to be a hard crossfire. Kanzu actually chose to step out, but instead, he wants to play this in a 1-on-1. With the kit there, Shark does pose a threat, but oh, the adjustment is perfect. Great stuff. The 1-on-3 retake coming through from Icarus.
Oh, I mean, marvelous. Incredible shooting, and they knew exactly where he was coming from as well. But small missteps in the way that the Sally Go-Gurds peaked those angles, maybe unsure about where he could be positioned when he tapped that bomb. But exceptional work, some sharp shooting from Sharks to maybe be a catalyst for a little bit of a comeback here for Icarus. This is the type of round that can raise the morale of your squad very quickly.
God, there's so many flashes here early on, but not as much acceleration as you might normally see from Salagogers. They've lost a player as well, and it feels like Icarus is nicely in place. If Kunz had only been able to find the frag, the top connector smoke will just be pushed right through. These have got no hesitation about that. Mikozu can just go ahead and gain ground. Fuyu finds another one. In the meanwhile, Shark is yet to reveal himself underneath Palace, and as soon as he does, this will be a serious threat. But no, he's being spotted out. They're trying to spam him through. Somebody and Mikozu both finding a kill apiece. Fuyu can't land that one, though. Looked like it was right on the money. Would have been good for the 2v2, but Fuyu now instead is forced into connector where he has very little cover to actually find out from.
Okay, that got a little weird there for Mikozu, going for a weird jump spot, jiggle peek down to CT spawn, but don't think he got information that Shinos is over this direction. Still, a suspicion is raised and still trying to maintain his position as well, because the open of Fuyu isn't making much movement, and there's just simply no time to be sitting around like this. A long-range dualies fight, sure, but a round one here for Salagoga. It's a 9-3 half on this T side where they win by, quite frankly, sheer aggression.
There were, what, 2, maybe 3 rounds where it felt like Icarus had gotten a good advantage as well, but at the same time, they won that 1v3, right? It does sort of even itself out. Salagoga do just look like they are destroying any conceptualization of the defense that the Icarus side had, right? Like, hey, it's okay. They're going to come in late. They're going to throw flashes and everything. We're going to try to get ahead. No, nothing is happening. They're just coming at them.
Yeah, and once they get these 4 positions, they're throwing all the right utility to sort of take and capitalize on that space as well. You know, a lot of burst executes from Salagogards throughout that T-side half. We'll see if Icarus can show us more of their style as well, or whether they lose what was already their last life in this tournament. Sanzu, oh dear, that had to be more than one. They never checked Sandwich, and they're beelining straight towards jungle, where Kimmy's running low on ammo and has to be crisp, and he is clean with it. Kimmy, with those 2 kills, suddenly makes it so that Salagogars have an advantage and a flank all on top of it.
Freebie for Jemga will actually set things up for the CT player to be pushing forward as well. Kunz forced away by Jemga, who has revealed the fact that he's come up, and with the smoke down, this was going to be basically an impossible round. Too much cover, and Salagogards continued their winning ways. Gotta say, man, I have been very impressed with what Jemga has to offer. Even if he might be contested more later on versus maybe some of the teams with more sheer stopping power, it's good to see. It's good to see.
Yeah, there are very few players that maintain this level of hyper-aggression the further up the rungs they travel in whatever scene you're in. You know, whether you're looking at like an Art or a Yakindar, or, you know, these types of players that are willing to just take a spawn and run with it. You know, facilitated by utility, sure.
Flash is good. Shark and Shinos, however, still able to find kills. 3 for Shinos. Wow. There are responses from Kimozu and Kimmy, but now, sorry, Mikozu and Kimmy. Kimozu.
You're making relationship up names for them already. It's barely been one map.
No one's checking their back.
Yeah, this is a really nice quick flank.
He might be too slow though. By the time he's actually there at the apartment side, because he's not willing to make any steps at all. I mean, you can understand why, but he's given up. He's given up the fact that maybe he could have caught up the T's before they got to the bomb side, before they really set up. They weren't looking at him, and he reveals his position. Now all of that stealth has gone to waste. Now they know exactly where he's coming in from. That doesn't cover your dropping sound. It's literally the silenced M4. Maybe not the gun that you're going to be able to pull that one off with. And he is found on the drive by Kunz. Can just finish him off. Icarus to steal around.
Yeah, if he hadn't been so concerned about a player resetting towards truck, then there was a real chance that he's able to isolate that into a 1v1. Had the timing for a flank. They weren't set up in the best positions. They were looking, I think, to sort of regroup and even double push into market to cancel that as an angle for a retake. But like you said, as soon as he fired off those bullets, gave up his spot. Icarus doing a good job of mitigating the Sally Go-Gurt's aggression in through middle on that round. And overturning after losing in the pistol. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's still quite a long tunnel, though.
Seems to never end. Crucial kill to be found, that 4-man mid crunch that's being set up between underpass, connector, and short. That was going to be really difficult to deal with, so they've taken on one of the prongs of attack, but not the second. Kimmy, as well, is just trying to take a more defensible position as the T's are leaning back to the B bomb site. There's still no movement from Zanzu. He's still committed to the idea of an A lurk.
Here with the spot one, especially when there's so much pressure on middle. But oh, what? A lineup for Zums, and he kills all 3 on short. Had a glimpse, and may not have even realized it himself. He got a 2-for-1, but that has turned the tide instantly. Sally Go-Gurts, this shouldn't have been around that you even consider winning or having this massive advantage, but all these weapons that were dropped, irretrievable. Fuyu's still fighting tooth and nail in this spot, but now at distance, the Deagle of Zanzu landing tag, sure, but Fuyu's still healthy enough that he can sit and wait, has 30 seconds, and if he can read where Kimmy's coming from, this round is a done deal, but it's a patience game.
The thing is, Kimmy knows that Fuyu couldn't have actually gone up all the way through connector unless it was a very specific timing window, and Fuyu doesn't have time to rotate back out to the A bomb site for the long way around. So Kimmy actually had the advantage, but now he's given up the angle. Fuyu in the one-on-one, but he's making noise. He doesn't have time. He knows it as well. This round is what he needs to kill. He won't get it. Kimmy cleans up in the end, but it really is a Zums round. Wow, what a shot to find.
That is so ridiculous. How has he gotten away with that? Instantly killing 2 on short, and then we see it from the B anchor's position. Oh, there's one up short, no problem, and then dies right in front of him.
What? That didn't even look like they were together.
That
honestly.
bullet bended. I don't know what happened.
That has to be like a GoTV ping thing, something like that going on. Otherwise, yeah. He had a very different perspective, and his is the one that matters. Jemga, as he pushes forward, there's nades all over the place, but no kills to be had despite the hail of bullets, and the double questions are making their way over. P250 in hand. There is a fight right back, 3-on-3, and guns to be retrieved in middle.
All about making sure that this isn't still a territory of siege, though, for Sally Go-Gurts. They know that they've dropped some guns, and there could have been re-aggression from connector, window. They do not have the smokes to segment them off, but now just crawling their way into these rifles. It's all about whether Kimmy extends, because this can go from bad to worse quickly if it's not too careful. Timing is exceptional, though.
Shark is also spotted out. Kimmy knows. Kimmy's got 1 for free, and now as they're trying to turn back, there's just a smoke to differentiate from them from the B site. They can't go there. Their path has been cut off completely. Shark, he thought about it, but decides against it. They might still end up at B, but in order to wait for this smoke and then walk over, that's a solid, what, 20 more seconds from now?
Yep. Smokes are longer in CS2, so waiting around is unideal at times. But they feel they have to check it.
If they walk to the B site now, there'll be 15 seconds left on the clock when they're jumping out of the window. They have to get a hoof on it. They're now revealing positions. They're moving out, and even then, Kimmy's position is fantastic. He's just waiting for them, and on the drop down, it's a bomb going first. It's good movement to try and avoid the first sightline, but he doesn't actually check the corner. Fuyu, only one left, will also fall. 12 for Sally Go-Gurts, and Icarus are on elimination, or rather, the verge of it.
Yeah, I have to appreciate Sally Go-Gurts have played a fairly risk-oriented style. You know, they've been aggressive on CT side. They're not always covering all the right angles. They're leaving themselves exposed in certain moments, but they're also taking a lot of risks and being rewarded for taking those gambles in certain moments. You know, this time Kimmy is just slipping by when it was a very slow roll from Icarus after getting those 2 kills in middle. Icarus have been heavily timinged this game, but they've also exposed themselves to those timings, sometimes just not looking at the right angle or being overly concerned about things that are rather unlikely. Salagogirds, this has been a strong performance from them in our first showing with them.
Shark is gone on the question, trying to get involved, but not really any frags to be found. Icarus, they're losing everyone. It's last man standing, and Fuyu is the only one who's gonna have a few more breaths to take, but even then they will be eliminated. Icarus will fall, and to be honest, they didn't really even get close to the sun, Michael.
Yeah, no, those wax wings were faulty from the start, it felt as though, and they already lost that first life as a result of not being able to play in day one, so Salagogirds will continue in our lower bracket. It was quite a lengthy game, given the pauses we had, but quite a quick finish once we actually saw the action in the server, given the pace Salagogirds wanted to play with. And my MVP, I don't care what the admins say. I don't know if we're even going to get the MVP graphic, but I don't care what the admins say. It's Gem-G for me. He played a lights-out form of aggression that I can only hope continues later into the tournament as well.
Yeah, I think the numbers might be indicating Kimmy to be the one to be the MVP because he was getting a lot of those sort of second frags and everything. But I'm with you right there. As far as impact is concerned, as far as, you know, getting so much space, so many entries, so many rounds, Jemga was the man for that. And I'm sure we're going to get plenty of replays of him as well. Like, look at this. How the hell did he actually get into jungle all the way without being noticed? And I think that does also point fingers at Icarus, right? They weren't ready. They weren't looking at every angle. They were very much caught out floundering, and I'm sure the first life would have helped them out with that, right? Just to iron some things out, just to get into the zone for this tournament, but it wasn't happening.
Yeah, and comms not being clear. I mean, you're saying, how does he get into jungle unnoticed? It's not like they didn't know that he was there at the top side of connector. Just the player in window didn't turn around for it. He was still smoked off. You know, those are the types of things that will only happen because communication seems to break down. And I don't know, as soon as Salagogirds got that 5th man in, suddenly we were kind of couldn't stop singing their praises, the way that they were kind of playing off each other in sort of some of these late round situations, but very frequently just the way they started rounds, it felt like it was pretty well drilled.
And it's going to be a fun time to see them sort of going forward as well. I'm not 100% sure about who they'll actually be facing off versus. We're going to find that one out at the end of the day as well. But as far as Icarus is concerned, they are our first Vietnamese team to be eliminated. We do have 2 more Vietnamese teams. God, this shot is so absurd, random zooms. But we do still have 2 Vietnamese teams that are actually in contention. Hyper5 will be coming up next versus the Young Dangers, the Indonesian side. And AZ Esports will, I think, be seen tomorrow or day after, one or the other. As they are still both continuing their lower bracket affair forward. But yeah, so Kimmy is the MVP as far as the numbers are concerned. And guys, this is why we don't listen to our admins and we think that they should stick to what they do best, which is server things, and get out of my MVP discussions. Because Jemga was a real MVP right there.
I mean, Kimmy did win a clutch, that is true. You know, had the nice little 1v1. I mean, kind of a 1v2. You know, had a teammate alive, but had like 1 HP. And hit some nice shots. But listen, I think it's difficult to say or sort of split hairs about it. Kimmy had some impactful rounds, but Jemga just played with such fearlessness that I can only strive for.
Oh, please don't do that at home. Please don't strive for that fearlessness, guys. And with that message, we're going to go off to a break. We're going to be back pretty soon to the next match. It's going to be Hyper5 versus Young Danger coming up next. Don't go anywhere. We'll be starting this one pretty quickly, hopefully. Timers be banished. The only timers that matter over here are round timers. Hyper 5 versus the Young Danger, Indonesia's second finest versus Vietnam's finest, I think. We're going to figure all of this stuff out, right? We're workshopping this stuff, but we are also workshopping why there are 4 people on the HUD for Hyper 5 right now.
Yeah, there are 5 players on the server, so the HUD will probably need a little refresh, but keep in mind there is an extra man floating around here for Hyper 5, even though the HUD is lying to you. Very fast play here from Hyper 5, and that's something we came to really recognize when we saw them on Ancient last. I'm kind of surprised we see Overpass at all, but Pace is going to continue with some smokes and util sailing into this A-bomb site.
This is one of those Sandman specials where he does like calling on. It used to be the older Inferno and Overpass, but now it's SA to get aggressive. Sandman as well right there with him. They are dismantling the Hyper 5 side. These teddy bears have never felt less threatening. You can put a dualies in their hands, but teddy bears don't have fingers, so you can't actually pull the trigger on them.
Yeah, lovely setup there from Young Danger, having the flash ready, and all they had to do was say, hey, SA, and he got 3 kills out of it, so... Showed his hand, Young Danger, with a really nice defense, dealing with what was a full-on execute, and even though they had all the smokes down, they weren't prepared for Young Danger to simply fight in front of them.
And of course, as expectations have to be discussed, I am expecting Young Danger to run away with this one, right? Because, look, there are a lot of newer players on the Young Danger side, right? We have missed out on some of who I thought were the best players on this team, like Marcia and Nira. Waste of Ammo are not here, but even so, from what we saw from Hyper 5 yesterday, they accelerate and then they freeze, and versus a team like that, I think Sandman's calling becomes particularly valuable, so... I'm interested to see whether I'm right or I'm just blatantly wrong, but hey, both are possible.
Yeah, you can be right historically, but it doesn't always translate to every single match.
Wow, that's kind of impressive, honestly.
Yeah, like what, a 6-round burst and connected on the head on a couple of those bullets.
SA, meanwhile, he's been nothing short of impressive himself for quite a while. This is still a death to him. Lime's got a stray bullet into the head of Percival. Didn't look like he was completely planning that shot to connect, but hey, he'll take it. Farmer's picked up as well. He'll take that too. Wow, there's a lot being given up to him, but triangulation is still being set up. The CTs are looking to close down Nosgi. Nearby can punch his lights out.
Yeah, some really nice shooting on those MP9s, though, making it difficult for Hyper 5 to simply contact their way into those plays. Tried to catch them off guard as a result. So it's actually interesting. We see Shu's weapons, but we don't see him, you know? Like, the HUD just is ignoring his health. A little peculiar. But Hyper 5 moving in with a first gun round where they have a strict range advantage. Wonder how Young Danger are going to try and facilitate these SMGs, or even if they're needed to. SA very aggressive into the most aggressive team we've probably seen so far this tournament, and he caught them off guard.
Listen, we did just see Gemga and Company, right? Maybe we don't go quite that far, but yeah, they were definitely in the contention.
I mean, I would say that they were the most aggressive team. I think Gemga was doing the most aggressive things, but, you know, Hyper 5 were very, very pacey in that Ancient game we got to watch. And sure, it wasn't the best result for them, but the way in which that they were attacking together, you know, kind of playing shoulder to shoulder on the run, was something that can be commended called at the right time.
That's it. It's going to be real important. Lime's taking him down. Hyper 5 with the long side of A being cracked open. This might be their chance to go through. Lime is looking to push through that smoke right into another headshot. Sandman takes an E. Put to sleep, even though that's supposed to be his job.
Trying to creep up from bank. Lime's already in a forward position and not even checked by Listro. Should be the round done right here. Lime taking it all.
My God.
All kills. A full ace for Lime. And some fantastic work in clearing these angles and locking down positions in that post plant as well. That can certainly be a way to spark things. I like to see that out of an individual. I mean, just no fear after he gets that kill in bank. And nobody was ready for the instant headshots too.
Jamaica's got competition, right? Like, I think it's fair to say over there. And Hyper 5 do not want to be the second Vietnamese team eliminated from the tournament. They want to be sticking through. They're also one of the teams that, look, when we're considering the open qualifier teams, Hyper 5 is definitely one of the ones who could potentially make a dent, making a top 8, maybe even, sort of luck out in one of their opponents. BO1s can be very favorable to them in that regards. It does feel like it was always sort of Hyper 5 or Dark Side, if you were going to consider one of the open qualifier teams to be the ones to come through and actually maybe have an upset or two.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally reasonable. I mean, there's just, it's so, unfortunately for these teams when it comes to these types of competitions, because they're kind of far and few between at the moment. I think Southeast Asia and Asia in general is just going to get a lot more love in the next sort of coming 6 to 8 months. But when it comes down to when it happens that we have so few tournaments, sure, one tournament that might look quite good, you might have some good words to say about Sandman and their calling, or we might have some good words to say about Hyper 5 in this tournament, depending on how they do. There can be such a different feel tournament to tournament for these guys that it's kind of hard to remain consistent in our narratives for these guys until we see more paces put through, basically.
That's true, especially when you consider, we're talking about individual players very often, right? So Sandman's calling, obviously, like I'm mentioning, Hyper 5 obviously have some, very aggressive players in Lime and the like, Jemga's aggression. Half the time, these teams switch up players between tournaments, right? You lose one event, suddenly you've got 2 new guys coming in. That completely changes the dynamic of your team. Dark Side is made up of half of OTG, the other half is in Dreamscape. So yeah, event to event, there will be a lot of sort of penduluming across to see who can actually be good, who can actually be bad, right? So it's going to be interesting as we sort of have this event's metagame and this event's definition of these teams sort of take shape and take form. Obviously, that's something that does lean away as scenes become more defined. But then we get buyouts, Michael, and buyouts are just the worst, aren't they? They are the worst.
I mean, they're good for the organizations for sure, and also they're still keeping most of those players on payroll, albeit probably at a reduced amount. So I don't know if they're the worst thing in the world, but yeah, no, you end up in a situation where the players that. Unfortunately, from sometimes in tournaments, you get it kind of revealed to you whether these players deal with pressure or not, or whether there's communications breakdowns or sometimes internal conflicts that can sometimes spark up as a result of maybe somebody doesn't watch an angle or they're not playing the position properly when it comes to their officials, but in practice they do it fine. These are old traits or qualities that you sometimes will have to filter out as you compete more and more often, and that's why we see so much turmoil in terms of roster stability. I know it happens in my domestic scene as well, and it's very hard to find a shoe that will fit everything, unfortunately, because we talked a lot about like styles and trying to carve out your own version of the way you want to play Counter-Strike, and every player is going to have a slightly different view on that.
Especially because even for the players who are, maybe sort of considered the core of a team or the more stable parts of a team, they're not at the top level. Right, so they're rediscovering themselves. So it's like being a child with a growing foot, right? So a shoe that fit you last tournament might not fit you in the next one either. It's very annoying, right? So that's one of the things that for these teams and these players, it's much easier to fix. It's a much easier fix to just bring in one new player and sort of also have something else you're discovering that, oh, actually, maybe I'm not as good at this, or hey, maybe this is something that I find more annoying. These guys don't know what their style is completely yet. Sure, some of them have better ideas like impression and the like, but beyond that, a lot of it is self-discovery, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be copying Astrala's demos from 2017.
Yeah, and maybe I should have taken a few more risks instead of simply playing my bomb site like I rehearsed all the time in practice and it works.
Again, man, stop talking about Advent.
That was more directed at myself. I'm a very passive player.
I never actually played with you. One day.
Probably for the better.
Honestly, for both of us, yeah.
No, I mean more for me, but yeah, I mean,
No.
if you also benefit, I mean, that's cool too.
I'll boost you any day, man. Like, literally, I'll get under you and hope you're going to kill people.
Overpass, of course, a map known for its boosts.
Of course, Young Danger not going for any of them, though. They would rather go aggressive, something Michael clearly knows nothing about.
Well, we had a 3D HUD there for a second, and I don't have the glasses for that. blue and red tinted. Noski is discovered on his flank attempt, as is Pervical. So, Young Danger
Is it
will...
Pervical or Percival? Because his name is Percival on the HUD now.
Oh, I see. But on the sheet we were given before, it was Pervical.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, Young Danger has swervicaled into the A bomb site, and that is the target. But these 3 players with pistols may not be enough to stop the aggression that's coming their way.
SA still good for a kill. Can he make it 2? Somehow the op was trained on him, but doesn't get the frag. What? Sandman, I don't even think you fired a shot.
Yeah, it looks good. And his teammate came around the corner very haphazardly.
He's the fashion police. They don't shoot you. They just judge you while they look at you very close.
I don't like the cut of your jib. Yeah, kind of staggering he gets away with that. His teammate did also die from dice, but SA is the multi-fragger. 8 kills thus far, even though the game is tied 2-2 a pop, and now a full reinvestment here from Young Danger. A very quick smoke onto short.
Yeah.
Thrown by the T's, in fact. But that's a lot of territory. Taking over short water like that, as quickly as they've done, and, you know, being able to effectively segment off an area of the B bomb site is very threatening. So Hyper 5 have to compensate. Flashes are good on long, though, and the Molotov as well. Sandman has to reinforce, has to try and provide some backup and bail some space, but SA, again, good for his 1 kill in spot, but Sandman has to now retreat, lost his man at long.
We've seen one of these duels go by the wrong way, and Piccoli will show us exactly why. It's an easy pre-fire angle, and he does find the frag, and now on the back of the bomb site, it'll be Listro waiting. Soncam 1603 does sound like it's just a camera model, I won't lie to you. Maybe he's playing on a camera! It is Piccoli to take the shot.
Percival.
Back to the bomb site, good for 1. Can he make it 2? Yes, he can. The team damage from earlier on will assist, and he's good for 3. In fact, before the Flames finally take him down, Young Danger win on just 1.
Yeah, it gets a little confusing there, for sure. You know, a numbers advantage there for Hyper 5. Sandman could have retreated from long, but maybe didn't think he had the space, given that there was somebody spotted long bathrooms. He knew that they were at tree and still fighting in that area, and the timing may not have worked out for him. But able to recover our Young Danger, and they'll find themselves with a bit of a lead. Win here as well, and they'll be able to break the money of Hyper 5, and some easier rounds could be afoot. So he tried to take the deep peek with that AWP in through middle, but is flashed off very effectively. In fact, it's a chain of flashes from Hyper 5 that continually force him back.
Michael, even in the previous round where you saw where Hyper 5 almost sort of let slip a few kills on long, because they were completely ready to play that toilet isolate angle, and then they just don't go forward. SA
has been very reliable for this Young Danger squad, even in trying circumstances. Will get his 1 kill. He's still, or at least he was, challenging over towards Banana, but now backing off into the bomb site. Know that they've left long unattended for quite some time.
I'm trying to remember, did we see Young Danger opping yesterday? I feel like we never got to it. They were getting pummeled a little bit, I won't lie to you, so harder to pick up those ops. He's taken down. Sandman's there on the trade, but only good for the 1. It's generally Percival, who we've seen get multi-kills on the A site, and with him so far away, there's no way to actually get back onto A either. They will look to contest. They don't have a kit, but maybe there's one on the site. Noski, as he pushes forward, is going to be meeting a smoke. Disappointment, I'm sure, is here, but as a smoke will be Anticipating about 4 seconds or so. They'll at least have a small timing window to maybe boost up and find the kit to get the defuse going on, but the T's have got so much cover over here. The AWP recovered from Lysra as well. There's a real argument to be made to actually just try and save here. Noski, though, he doesn't want to care about that argument. Good for the 1 kill, but it's Shu who's actually pushing all the way forward. He's taken down, but there's no longer any time. Percival will fall, and BM has to keep himself alive with just barely any HP.
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't have a kit, them waiting out all those smokes was going to really prove to be too trying on that retake attempt. So, really good catch from our observing team to have shown us that. And a competitive swing at making that retake work, but they just didn't account for Shu revealing himself from long so late into the round. Hyper 5 keeping their wits about them. And
so, interestingly enough, Soncam is actually their 6th player. I just got news of this.
Ah.
Not sure if this is like an overpass specialty. But, yeah.
Plus, this is bit arc.
Particularly, well, that's a lot of flashes that do end up blinding him as well, but he doesn't care. All he has to do is left click and vaguely spray in the direction.
Not for that round, but the round prior, I do want to give a little shout out to our observing team, J-Raz with Viridian, making sure that we get some nice cinematics as well as catch a lot of the action. There's been been a very chaotic set of games. You know, the opening round best of ones when we've got 16 teams, half of them coming through open qualifiers where we, you know, it can be hard to anticipate sometimes what's going on. I don't think we've missed much, if anything. They've been doing a bang-up job when we have games to watch.
Anti-flash for SA. Sandman, though, is only able to trade him. In the meanwhile, PMS has found 2 elsewhere. And, well, Young Danger has lost everyone. What can I say?
Yeah, well, you take a risk sometimes, and it doesn't pan out. Hyper 5 are actually doing I think a much better job of kind of playing contained, understanding that CT side as well on overpass can be one of the few maps where CT aggression and taking over like very early transition points on T side is actually kind of encouraged because the fallback angles are very strong. So I like that they're playing a slower style here on this map. First of all, good kill onto what was already a weakened Shu, but trade was always set up there by so more can be built off of this here for Hyper 5. This is looking increasingly likely that they're going to at least have an even Kilter scoreline coming out of this half. And who's to say they stop there? They could very well just take over the game. Young Danger and Hyper 5 didn't have good opening showings in the upper bracket. Hyper 5 looked to rectify it.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Young Danger, so far all we're seeing from them is consistency. And you don't want to be consistent when your previous performance was ending with you only on, what, 3-4 rounds? Flash in and the toilets isolate is something they have prioritized before, but this time Hyper 5 are much more aggressive as they go forward. They've got something in mind. It is to just quickly get our Molotovs and nades onto the site versus the half-buy and to see if there's anything to be done. But as they scale forward, Sandman gets by, but not unpunished. Only the 1 kill before he is taken out as well. But 3 players looking to push through the smoke. The call has been made, and as the pushes come forward, it is possible to also go forward. Recovers the AK. The bomb is now in a position where Lime had to recover it. Percival has recovered the round instead. Young Danger, the 4-man push through the smokes, completely unexpected by the Vietnamese side.
Yeah, and I mean, an overlooked angle by Sandman in the first place as well. Yeah, I mean, or rather from Soncam, because Sandman is just playing the front side of bathroom. Sure, he goes traded, but then instantly it goes from 0 to 100 very quickly with Young Danger just emerging out of all of those smokes, pistols ablazing. That should have been a builder round for Hyper 5. Instead, it's Young Danger getting a nice little boost to their economy as well. They were always going to be able to buy up proper weapons moving into this round, but they steal one away. And it puts Hyper 5 in a pretty dire circumstance as well. When he's
What
not
is
as
the
healthy
smoke
as it could
supposed
be.
to accomplish?
One on short?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little curious. I was kind of surprised it was a T side smoke. I thought it was a CT one to like enable aggression, but
Yeah.
a little odd perhaps. SA though, after starting the game so consistent and getting his 1 kill, hell multi-kills at that, has since slowed, and so now this A bomb site becomes more and more vulnerable if that continues to be the case.
Jump shot from Noski is going to be a little bit dangerous. You know where he is? He's now spotted out Shu as well, but I don't know if he actually registered it. Sandman able to catch him out as Shu will fall. Piccoli will follow through as well. Leisha and Noski now on the site are going to be able to continue this fight forward. Hyper 5 nades to the shins of Soncam. He's got his knife out just asking to be killed. Percival will be happy to oblige. He takes his time, makes a meal of it. Even if it was just a morsel.
He was tracking right behind where he was quarter of a second ago. But yeah, only needed 1 bullet to connect in the end. Gets it a little scary. This is one of the positives for Young Danger, I guess, so far, is that even in the rounds that are highly contested, very, very scary looking when it's come to these A-side attacks, see, now I've almost got myself calling him Pervical again. Percival has been doing a great job on the rotates, getting a lot of these kills. I think it's something you pointed out earlier on. Hyper 5 pistols and a fast pace towards B, which has been the weaker of the 2 bomb sites, or at least the one that's shown a little bit less love.
God, that is so much damage.
They triple swung to try and fight Connector, and they all fall into that nade.
They do get the kill, but I think there's very few ways that could have been more expensive than it ends up being. And well, this might be one of those few ways. More damage chucked out. Leisha happy to oblige with that. But meanwhile, Sandman has rotated back to the A side. Both of these Hyper 5 players are going to take their time. I would really honestly like to see a much slower round end and see if those mid-round, late-round situations can be made something out of. That was something that Hyper 5 struggled with yesterday. But this is a tough situation to be in.
Yeah, see them giving priority to Lime as well on the rifle. See if PMS can create some room on this tech. Lime's been having a solid game as well. You don't want a low HP player leading first. Could very easily fall into a multi-kill. Very cheese angle for Sandman. Very tight. But wants to try and preserve his life for as long as possible so rotates can happen. PMS trying to force that issue. And Sandman, he's going to be forced into that fight. Forced into the duel. Lime playing close to spawn. And although he hears Leisha coming, simply doesn't have the health to trade. Leisha was also very prepared for the fight. Young Danger, it gets a little scary with the fast-paced play into B, but as soon as the con effort from SA comes in, suddenly the round looked far more achievable and more to the pace that Young Danger were hoping for.
Considering the fact that we said Hyper 5 would be at a minimum even Kelter through a 6-6, Young Danger's 1 stolen round has really turned the momentum of this game onto its head.
Yeah.
I am certainly much more curious about what Hyper 5 have to offer. Is there any set strat for this last round? Do we maybe see a B-side execute? That's something they strayed away from.
This might be a classic case of just going back to what works. This is weird, though. PMS was the B-side defaulter and had to give up his angle. He is very good as well into Piccoli.
Piccoli, more like Peekaboo.
Oh god. Yeah, PMS is not liking the way that things are going over at B. He knows that there's somebody deep committed into Monster, but can do very little to deter him. AWP actually tagging, but not finding the frag. Lime just committing to the wide swing, and Noski trying his best to get the trade right back, but he will not succeed. A 3-on-5, almost in sync.
SA's not in a position to rotate over. He could be isolated out over here if he tries to do so, but there's no real thread back to B. SA's got full information. They know that he normally plays out to the long side of things, so now that he's in divider, he's going to be able to catch off a player off guard, but he's not ready for the double pump, double flank. Can he get the frag though? If he does, PMS going down over here would be big. He's watching for connector, but he'll have the shadow advantage when he cannot make use of. Percival, however, is on the side, but Chu is as well. There's lots of creeping and crawling, but the CTs are the ones who are falling. Young Danger cannot get an advantage at the end of that half.
What a messy round. I mean, the bomb being committed to B as a solo defaulter in that area. Very awkward. That transition as soon as SA has shown his presence outside of bathrooms. You know, had he fallen there, the round is completely up in the air. You know, they're still trying to take space on the A play, but then players are having to peel back as well to retrieve that bomb and make sure that it would be able to make the transition to the bomb site. Hyper5 did get to 6 in the end. It took a little bit longer than maybe we anticipated. But let's see how things jumpstart moving into our second half. Hyper5 love forcing the issue on T side, but on CT they played a very contained game, but the Pistols of Pikali showing us a different face.
Full inch through, but Pikali's position is really important. He needs to hold on for this one. Bombs being planted. What does he actually watch out for? He's worried about a late short hit, one that will never come. And as Pikali continues to take point, he's instead taking shots. PMS and Soncam the only ones to find frags, but everyone else is falling. The CTs cannot scale up. Soncam still locked out, but he'll force himself into the site. A quick kill found, but Sandman and Noski are both playing with a lot more caution. Only PMS left, and he's not left for long.
Yeah, PMS had the kit. That was a way in which they could have gone back into the round. They were comfortable playing for a retake there, but expecting more effort maybe from Pikali. Had a second player emerge from short, and there was a kill found by Soncam, but he had to challenge somebody at a certain point, and when he swung into Sandman, that was basically the round done and dusted. Young Danger with an interesting pace to that pistol, just kind of set up for the B play, and Hyper5 cleared connector very weird. You know, went all the way through short and then cleared from doors through con. I mean, that could have caught Young Danger out had they gone for a more spread pistol, but at least one SMG will be flushed out. Young Danger with a full 5 Mac 10 buy against what is some pistols that can sort of capitalize on these distance fights. Right.
This information is not insignificant. The fact that they now know there's a solitary lurker out towards B short, not more than that at least. It's not certain, but seems like the likely case. You would expect Hyper5 to maybe start pushing through to A main, expecting there to be fewer players in B, and that's exactly what they do, but it's a wrong call. Noski finds one, and with that, can close out the door as well. That actually helps him out a lot, so these remaining CT pistols will not be able to sneak by. Not underneath Noski's nose, at least.
Yeah, good awareness. Good responsibilities taken from Noski in this round through the smoke that was utilized to get into the B bomb site. Still able to lock down connector and then keeping tabs on the flank as well. All about damage mitigation in a round like this, especially when you've got so many Mac 10s. You know, you want to farm up cash, and to a certain extent you do want to lose players because you don't want rifles. You want to have rifles moving into that first full buy. So we get a bit of a mixed bag. 3 survive on the Mac 10s, and hopefully AK's dropped over. Ideally, oh. Okay, I was curious about whether this would happen. Noski should buy an AK for his teammate, and there was one dropped.
There you go.
But yeah, Listra bought himself, and you know, he had to be talked down, save some cash.
One of the things that does suck, though, is that the CTs have to go full head armor, except for PMS who didn't have the money. You can see how limited the utility is. At 143 on the timer, we only have an incendiary left for them.
Yeah, pretty painful. That one Molotov has already been used, trying to stop a rush. Knew that there were SMGs aplenty, and they'll flash as soon as that Molotov fades. That lack of head armor could prove to be a real vulnerability. Lime just trying to preserve his life, and Pika Lee forcing into short, and was revealed, but SA not prepared for that duel. Pika Lee still fighting tooth and nail and succeeding once again. Trade from Sandman's good, but now has a 1-on-2 ahead of him.
He picked up Sandman. Really needs to find this round. First kill is nice. It even gives him a chance to relocate, and PMS had to explore and see if he can find anything with it. It is the 1v2 for Young Danger that lends them a 9th. That is spectacular.
Yeah, I thought they'd kind of fallen into a bit of a trap. Hyper 5 were very fast on the way that they rotated back into this B bomb site. Got the numbers advantage as well, but Sandman is one of the most experienced players on this team, and showing us some of that flair, some good awareness on each of those clears. Maybe got caught out by the Heaven player just a tad, but as soon as he didn't die there, the round was definitely in his favor. Pistols will strike first here in round 16. Pika Lee as well, combining with Shu at a distance. These Deegs are making quick work of what was supposed to be a heavy long play. Sandman, we liked your clutch so much, we wanted you to do it again, but much, much harder. He'll get another 1v3 presented to him, but has no info on where these CTs could have scattered off to.
Soncam is getting very, very hyperactive over here. If he hadn't stopped moving, there would have been a world where Sandman could have had a freebie and then you're back to 1v2, right? But now the problem is Hyper 5 are chasing after him very, very slowly. Sandman could have gone to T-spawn, they realize it, but PMS is far away, so now it's very much a game of chicken. Soncam's repositioning will allow him to cover off connector, so they're at least wary of the possibility. You can see Lime is also just waiting to see whether or not there will be a retreat upwards, and Sandman will honestly not be able to exercise any of those possibilities. Another stolen round out in this game, but this time it does go the way of Hyper 5.
I guess there is some justice for Hyper 5 in that regard. They had to deal with one of these on their T-side effort, then so do you. A commendable effort from Sandman, all in all. Kind of an extremely difficult clutch to win out, really. Lack of info, had time to play with, sure, but had to read into all these repositions. Love the aggression here from Hyper 5. It's not as though Young Danger will be none the wiser to their antics. It makes it very uncomfortable for what are pistols. Not a lot of resources to retake these areas of the map. Ooh, they even threw a deeper smoke coupled up with it. So yeah, there's no retreating back towards those steps. PMS watching and seeing one player emerge from connector, but Noski turned, and that's a free kill.
Yeah, it's not every day you see someone just sort of run away with a back turn and start looking at their teammates instead. I believe that is a side smoke coming out from Sandman. Flash is good, but Lime will to try and defend. And as Leisho goes forward, he is just a sacrifice. Soncam clean up from long range in heaven. We'll find 3. Very impressive stuff, honestly. The anti-eco just making sure the CT economy can prevail.
Wonder if he'll be the man we fixate on. Moving on to the CT side. Get the Soncam Hypercam.
Someone we haven't really fixated on very much, but perhaps deserves a bit more attention, not for the best of reasons. Leistroy is on 2-14 now, Michael. That is not acceptable when the rest of your teams are you know, well into their double digits.
Yeah, carrying the slack a little bit. You know, very distributed scoreboard for Young Danger. Percival, a shot onto PMS, flubbed the initial burst, but they just cannot deal with Shu. Fighting out in the open, topside con. So this will be a man advantage here on the Hyper 5 start. Some areas of control have been gained here for Young Danger. Options are still open. Kind of unlikely that Shu stuck around after his duels in connector, but reclearing the bathrooms will be increasingly difficult with their limited manpower.
Does seem like it's just gonna have to be a straight contact through, but they use the smoke. One of the biggest problems with facing an overpass CT site is how effective it is when you have a man advantage. Right? There's so many ways to just cover off an entire site with an op and stack the other one. That's exactly what is being done right now from Hyper 5 side. And look, Lime positions revealed. Op can rotate it in easily as well, but it might not be needed. Lime's good for one. Piccoli's there for the second two. Hyper 5 equalized.
These forward spots. Maybe this is the type of map that actually just kind of plays to the strengths of Hyper 5. They do like to take these fights, even if they are a little bit brave, maybe brazen. But this is a way in which this game can quickly turn around if they're able to assert themselves and make Young Danger fear for their default. Then this could be quite a one-sided half all in all, too. Challenging, and has a player right behind him as well, but Piccoli flubs the spray. Percival gets both.
Surely we don't have a third one of these. Well, time to find out. Leistro's position leaves him very isolated for a 3v3 equalizer, but at the same time, the CTs who are trying to get aggressive and actually look for this equalizer, they might not be ready for this. BMS, position revealed, he's backing off. There will be a timing, but Leistro's made noise, still will not matter. Good kill to be found. Brings it to a 4v2, very comfortable now for Young Danger. They should not be letting go of this one. And the CTs are still forced to have Soncam focused in onto the A-bomb site. The shadow advantage almost forced him to pull the trigger early, but he can hold the line long enough. Lime caught up with a flash in his hand, but there's no one to actually look at him. Not yet, at least. Yeah.
They don't know that he's dropped. Yeah, they didn't know. Lime able to creep up from into water. Soncam jumping onto the site with that AWP, but firing off shots and firing blanks. Hitting a whole lot of nothing. Young Danger, that little slowdown in the late round, especially when they had that man advantage, coming back to bite Hyper 5.
Michael, does the damage sound get heard by your enemies?
What, when you drop?
Yeah,
you take full damage?
Like,
yes.
Yeah, you take full. I'm surprised that they didn't know.
Yeah, it does. Okay. I have to check myself. I mean, it doesn't go.
Oh, good point, actually.
Yeah, that's where my knowledge stops.
Well, shoot. We'll put a stop to Young Danger as well. Right here. Now, they haven't struggled as much versus the gun rounds, if we're being honest, but you can't let those Tech 9s get away with it.
He's been quite the force to be reckoned with on the CT side. The ways that he's been challenging inside of connector and outside of it, in fact. Even his fight towards long. Taking a lot of these forward spots to shoo away the enemies. Lee, nice blow open of the doors and capitalizing on it. Percival had no idea where he ran off to. Could have taken the left or the right, and Lime is able to bail Lee out of what was a little dicey situation on short. Just like that, Hyper 5 are looking to equalize and get us to double digits. This is a close game, one in which Sandman will try and prevent if possible. But, I mean, he had a good clutch in one round, sure, but 1-on-5s are difficult for anyone. And he will prove that difficulty doesn't break here in Southeast Asia.
Can you imagine if that's what the region was, the specialist stuff? Yeah, we're really good at 1v5s, actually.
It's like, why do you end up in so many 1v5s?
Yeah, we've got like a 34% 1v5 completion rate, yeah. 1 in 3, baby.
Well, taking a while to figure out what their buy is going to be. Sandman just looking at all his teammates floundering around with pistols and just thinking, guys, get a grip. This game can certainly still slip out from under Young Danger. Nothing is a certainty right now. Even on these pistols, Hyper 5 have to be very careful. Seen both teams concede a round just like it, albeit it's been the T side that's been on the worst end of, or on the receiving end of losing these rounds.
Except for the Tech 9 one, yes, that is true. There's a lot of free real estate here. Long is completely empty. You get a Deagle in there, a Tech 9 in there, in a good position, and a C2 who's going for a jump spot or going for a crossover, anything like that, that gets dangerous. But Young Danger are worried. There has largely been long presence, at least a little bit shallower so, but there has been. They don't want to contest too heavily, and we know it, they don't. That might have been a mistake.
Okay. Just keep opening and closing the condor. Songcam trying to catch a timing. But now vacates. They were doubled up on truck, but the third man has made its way over in Pika Lee, who can provide some support on the assault onto the A-bomb site.
Excellent crossfire being set up for the CTs though, and as the Ts will start to scale up, there's not enough Molotov shoot. Good for one, makes it two. The spray continues. 3 big frags, and Lee shows alone, and well, the glitch might just be there to censor what was here to come. Pika Lee will take him down as well. Hyper 5 keep all 5 alive.
Do or die. Now for Young Danger, this buy is incredibly important. They might be able to squeak out another force buy at best. But lose here, and Hyper 5 are pretty much guaranteed to go through in our lower bracket. So many flashes just chaining them, but Sandman gets detected trying to go through the short side smoke. Suncam's been struggling to hit that jump.
It has changed in CS2 a little bit.
Kind of feels and looks the same, and if the shoe fits, then why not wear it? Shoe, another great kill going through the front side bathroom smoke. It is traded instantly, but extra information as to where these Ts have gone off to. Songcam, though, this time overstepping. Back to 3-on-3.
The Ts are in for a rude awakening. Pika Lee, an angle that is going to be fantastic. They're turning away from him, and they end up just team killing themselves. Lime as well, right here to help him out, and SA is the only one left. Young Danger needed this round, but instead it's going to be to a 1 versus 3, turn to 2. Lime doesn't want to overcommit. He's in a position where he could be giving everything up, but his timing is great. Swings out right as SA is in mid-air. That leaves Young Danger in a position where they're going to have to be relying on Galil's, Mac 10s, and maybe 1 AK.
Yeah, it's not pretty. It's really not pretty. Really good job from Lime as well. You know, he has been consistent throughout this game, but even in that 2 versus 1 where he's isolated on short, knew exactly what he had to do in keeping that player contained into connector. Could have been a vulnerability, but instead worked to its advantage. Fast play in through middle and just full gunning and running with it. Pika Lee, though, quick flank, because they were trying to get the aggression emerging from long instead. Sandman, good counter kill, but their shoe on the cleanup. They have some space on the A-bomb site, sure, but getting that bomb over will be difficult.
They also don't have any HP, so they're both a bullet away, basically, for these AKs that have been stolen by Hyper 5, but SA... Oh no, knife out is not what you want to see here. Sandman, call to order yet again. They may have found the early advantage, but it was all set up for the trap in middle. Young Danger feel like they're going to be eliminated here and now. Did feel like they were the favorites going into this one, but Hyper 5 have looked dominant continually. Lime, Shoe, Pika Lee, their efforts have been easily visible. Sandman will fall 13 for Hyper 5. They keep themselves alive. We will only be saying goodbye to 1 Vietnamese team today.
Yeah, I mean, a great dynamic game from Hyper 5. Played some slower rounds than we were used to seeing in after that first day, and really ground out the clock. Made sure to still go for some of those risky duels that actually kind of proved to be their strength when we saw them on Ancient. But here on Overpass, that CT side, it just felt like a conduit for that same style of play to continue. And I mean, it really worked to everybody seemed to contribute. It worked to their strengths. They're able to push on flanks and have these great little crossfires built up on bomb sites as well. I think they did a great job of balancing a nice push and pull between them and their opponent on that CT side.
And I don't want to pick on one player because it wasn't a question of one player, but Leistra was really absent in that game. And when it is that close, 23 rounds played out, so many of your teammates were having a good game and everything, you just need a bit more, right? You're looking at 5 more kills and that changes the game. How many 1v2s did we see? How many 1v3s did we see? That could be a 2v2 right there, right? Just completely different game state. And unfortunately, it's just a rough time. And we're going to be continuing on the tradition of ending the day, Michael, which is that we get sick and tired of the admins making bad calls on the MVP. So, Michael, we get to choose who's your MVP, Michael.
Oh, that is actually a very interesting question. I think I'd have to go with Lime. Had that ace, we saw it on the replay just now, had an ace in one of the opening rounds on a gun round. Then as well, just being able to sort of consistently truck along. It was between him and Shu, I think, for me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it has to be one of those two. But yeah, for me, I would go with Shu for everything, but the ace that gave them their first or maybe second gun round, that was just too impactful. They had so many players who were able to keep themselves alive. Lime got the ace by pushing all the way through. They managed to build up a bit more of their economy. Hyper 5's first 5 rounds were effectively built off of that ace. They should have had their first 6 rounds built off of that ace, if not for the fact that they lost to a half buy. But yeah, man, that's it does come down to that one round that differentiates between Lime and Shu. Otherwise, it very much could have been anyone's. Shout out, by the way, honorable mention out to Soncam, who, despite standing in or being the 6th player, he looked really good.
Yeah, and it was a nuisance on that CT side, whether he was AWPing or whether he was being aggressive in short or just playing in the heads of Sandman in clutches. It felt like he was kind of all over the map and showing us many different looks for the Hyper 5 side. I don't know if he was the one instigating these calls, but he was definitely at the front of a lot of them.
And as far as Sandman's squad is concerned, we will be saying goodbye to them, but some shining gems there as well. Percival looked really good on the bomb side defenses, right on the rotate. It felt like he was really well drilled in what he had to do. No hesitation to push through the smokes where it was needed. Very decisive player that we have seen coming out from the Indonesian region.
Yeah, him and Essay, I think, both sort of honorable mentions in this game, considering, yeah, it was quite a close game, but they got so many multi-kills, either rotating or even just holding their spots. It was only when we saw Essay sometimes struggle that we actually saw the emergence of more success from Hyper 5's T side.
Well, look, Hyper 5 will be proceeding forward in the lower bracket, but tomorrow is not a game or not a day for lower bracket. Tomorrow, we don't have to say goodbye to anyone. It's all about the upper brackets. We're going to be having OS Esports versus Darkside. That's a really fun matchup, by the way, guys. It's going to be an interesting head-to-head. Make sure you're tuning in for that one at 3 Singapore time. And then we're actually going to get to see the first game played by both OnGay Warrior and the Old Goats, both of whom got forfeit wins earlier on, and both of whom are probably the most hyped teams going into this tournament.
Yeah, and then moving further into that upper bracket, we have Easy Peasy versus Mungyu, and then Dreamscape and Do Not Disturb La, who I don't think Do Not Disturb La have played a game either. So, there have been a few teams that have kind of benefited from teams being a little too intimidated to play them, perhaps.
Yep, they weren't disturbed, that's for sure. Mungyu as well will be having their first outing tomorrow. So make sure you guys are all tuning in for that. There are only 4 best of ones tomorrow, but that's because we wanted to focus on the upper bracket for you guys. But upper bracket also means there'll be some fun Counter-Strike. Just a reminder, Old Goats does have players, coming out from the Bleed Esports Valorant side. If that's who you were looking forward to seeing. They've got Legia making a comeback in CS2 in some regards, hoping to increase his overall prize winnings by, 12.5%. That's pretty high considering what a long career he did have. And then obviously we've got OnGay Warriors, the remainder of NKT, trying to bring together something new with Marcia and Neura. There's something for everyone, and there's also something for the Pakistanis. Darkside's got Pokemon, and bye guys, we're gonna see you tomorrow.